Just before we went on a break and to look at what's happening in the world of sports. Folks, the public participation exercise is coming up shortly. The members of parliament have decided to involve the views of the public before, or rather for the sake of entrenching. This is like the third attempt at entrenching the NG-CDF in the Constitution. Previous attempts had failed, but this is the first time public participation is being employed. The question a lot of the members of the public would have is this. First of all, what do I need to know before I put down my views on this? Number two, why now? Why this way? So let's start with you, our member from Riruta. From where you sit, why would kawaida mwananchi participate in this process? Why should they?
I mean, one, we already noted the misappropriation of this fund. I would love to urge all the members of the public, including my constituents, from Riruta and all the country at large.
Sorry, I think your mic isn't working. As we work on that, as you
Mulamba has
flip,
one,
sorry,
yeah.
okay. You can swap with Mulamba.
Okay.
Quick one. All right.
All right, great.
Actually, you had muted it. Please proceed.
Great. So
Yeah.
I'd love to urge my constituents and the Kenyans at large. One, we've already seen this misappropriation of this fund. One, we'd want as leaders, and the governance expert has just spoken and said, this thing will pass. It will pass, whatever it means. Even the High Court talking about it.
So why does it matter? Why should the citizens come?
So listen.
Yeah.
Remember, a revolution has started. That's what we've not been keen on. One, Mzalendo gives a report of how MPs are working. Two, it also gives a report of how underutilized the NG-CDF fund is. They also they have a report of this particular school was to be built in this particular area, worth 49 million shillings. But what you see there is less than 1 million, like a lady there said. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do, we want to get these reports and share it with their constituents. One, they need to understand who are those MPs who are not working, right? As he said, we might probably not be able to get this thing out right now, probably in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. But in the end, we will still be able to get it out and put it in the right particular way. We want citizens, when they're doing the public participation, I think it's around the 5th of May to around the 9th.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to, one, realize who their MPs are, because some of them don't even know the MPs. And two, know what have they done, not just in the NG-CDF fund, but also in the oversight. What you're going to do in 2027 is we want to recall these people back. And you want to tell them, now, mzee, kaa kando kidogo, let the people who want to work for the people work until a time when we will now be able to use this fund appropriately.
You know, there's a standing court order as to that,
yes,
as to what he says, yeah? And I am curious because then, besides that, the fact that 2026 is when we're supposed to have this scrapped off, reality is that there's a political aspect to it that is creeping in. And the Right Honorable Raila Odinga speaks to it for the very first time, and everybody else now has been swayed to that direction. What's interesting is that you find that, there's officially now conflicting opinions, even within the ODM party, which is not so common, that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga himself acknowledges, or Raila Odinga acknowledges that, even Raried, a member of parliament who's the sponsor of this particular bill, does not agree to his proposal. I mean, would it not be quite shaming to imagine that if this is going to be implemented, then it will be more of a political push as opposed to a legal push? What does it speak about the rule of law and the nation and us abiding to it? Maybe Wakili can answer to that briefly, and then we go to Njeri and Mulamba.
Thank you so much. In the hierarchy of laws, the Constitution is supreme. After the Constitution...
Let's have the mic on.
Your mic is muted. Just touch it. Yeah.
Is that better?
Thank you.
It's okay now, yeah.
Now, in the hierarchy of the laws of Kenya, the Constitution is supreme. And actually, the Constitution itself pronounces that the Constitution is the supreme law, and any law that is contrary to the Constitution must be declared unconstitutional. So any law must be in accordance with the Constitution. And like I said, the Constitution is very clear on the roles of each and every level of government. The functions have well been spelled in the Constitution. For example, you cannot devolve education. There is the aspect of education that is devolved, that is the ECD. And do we give bursaries to the nursery students, the pupils? We don't. So you cannot devolve bursary to to be done by the devolved governments. Agriculture, for example, is reserved for the county government. NG-CDF Act also alludes to the same. So what we need to do is to do away with the clauses in the NG-CDF Act that are actually performed by the county governments and remain a reserve of the county government. Number two, we remove the MPs from the implementation of the fund. Let's get a body that is supervised by the executive to actually oversee this fund. Without that, even if you do how many public participations, when we eventually pass that law that is against the Constitution, we shall still go back to court and the same shall be declared a nullity.
Okay. Jerry, the legal aspect to this as well as the political aspect to this, so we might as well say that everything is politics and politics is everything.
I really understand that, first of all, in a case, in a court of law where the hyena is the one that is supposed to give a case of the sheep, things might be a bit thick because we are discussing NG-CDF that is supposed to be debated in Parliament, but we are taking away, from a layman's language, we are taking away meat from somebody who is seated in Parliament, and it's upon them to make the call. Regardless of, the problem we have in Kenya is that we read the Constitution like some sort of a newspaper. And I've said that time and again. We have a government that decides to read the headlines, a government that skips obituaries and, those announcements in the newspaper that are declaring who is being auctioned. Then they go to the juicy part of the newspaper. That is how we want to read the Constitution in this regime. If we were to abide by the Constitution, if at all, we are to respect what the court is saying, we would really be moving forward in terms of why we even went to get a new constitution. And if anything needs to be amended, again, it needs to go into consideration of how it is outlawed in the constitution. How do we amend it? At what point can we amend it? And for what reason can we amend it? Because I don't understand why. Yes, we are saying about public participation, but for the longest time, Kenya does not have public participation. We just have some formalities whereby people will go to Mashinani and we will see forms. First of all, we do very shoddy public participations, like in the time of impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. We find that the public was not even informed on what they were deciding about. They were not given civic education about the whole debate. They were not given a chance to personally look at the issues that he was being accused of and decide for themselves. It was just a 20-minute exercise and that was it. So when we talk about...
Are you seeing the same happening this time?
Of course it's going to happen
from
because...
Where, the county where you come from, in Ndaragwa, you said
Nyandarua County, the public participation was very shoddy because,
and
again...
this time, for this particular one, for the NG-CDF, have you heard of anything on the ground?
Of course, my county has the highest number of members of parliament who will say anything that the president says. So for that, if they are called and told to say yes, they'll say yes. If they are called to say no, they'll say no.
Has there been public participation, civic education about?
In terms of civic education and in terms of enlightening Wanjiku, they would not agree to that because they know if they were to take the views of Wanjiku as they are, they would have never even voted for the finance bill to start with. But they'll go get the views. Then when they get to the table, they'll say, watu wangu wameniambia niseme yes. But in reality, waliambiwa waseme no. So what we are saying is, we are discussing a very delicate matter that is in parliament as we speak, but the person in question is the same person going to the ground to tell people why it should not be scrapped off. So we are doing a debate with the wrong crowd, and for the wrong reasons, they're going to make it retain or go away. If this thing was to be looked critically from a legal aspect, because you see, the problem we have in Kenya is that we don't even have the differences between the executive, parliament, and the judiciary. For a minute, they all act the same, depending on who is calling the shots on that time. Because if the Speaker of the National Assembly, who the same courts have told him to either step down as a speaker or remain as a party leader. Haja obey your court order. So how do we expect him to obey the court order that says that NG-CDF is unconstitutional? Again, he has already declared his stand in a matter that is already in court. He has already said that, you guys, I want to assure you that NG-CDF is not going anywhere. The same thing that we saw Gladys Boss Sholei do in the case of Rigathi Gachagua. She's the deputy speaker. She goes to a public forum somewhere in her county, holding a bakora and saying, huyu Gachagua lazima ataenda nyumbani. Then 2 months later after impeachment, we see the same woman in a platform that they share in a funeral telling the president, ulisema tupeleka Rigathi Gachagua nyumbani, tulimpeleka. So then again it begs the question, even this NG-CDF, regardless of how good or bad it is the same den of it's the same circle of people.
Wait a minute, Julian, I want to take
it
it away from you before we come to you, Tinega. I mean, Mulamba, I still insist on this question of politics as well as the law, that we have a deadline on the 2026, but we also are talking about the political aspect to it. And we have seen just how some certain individuals in our country have run with certain narratives or have pushed for certain agendas, and successfully for that matter. Perhaps the reason why we're having this conversation today, and it's been there for quite some time, like 2, 3, 4 weeks, up until members of parliament are now talking about a bill and now talking about public participation. Picking from what it is that we say here, do we say there is hope that then what Kenyans would envision, or what it is that the law envisions, is going to be done? Or are we saying that, well, we're just having a conversation, but we know the members of parliament will carry the day at the end of the day?
This country is full of politics, from the first year when the president gets a tenure to his last year.
Okay.
And that's what the problem is. The impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua was a diversionary tactic to fool the public and to quell the public anger about the finance bill protests and how youths were gunned down. Everyone saw that BBC documentary, I hope by now. The current conversation we're having right now is a diversionary tactic that has been crafted by Raila Odinga and Ruto, because Raila and Ruto are one and the same thing today.
Okay.
Tell me how the former official supremo, Raila Odinga, has managed to convince the entire country in his, well, they call him the enigma or whatever it is, has managed to convince all of us to start discussing the CDF right now, at a moment where the CS Treasury, who is his expert, by the way, has already tabled the budget policy statement in Parliament. And in a month or so, he's going to read to us the most punitive budget that we are going to have in this country.
The cabinet approved the finance bill
Yes,
today.
he's expert from ODM. So why are we discussing the CDF right now? Because the entire country is discussing the CDF. Heck, we even have a budget to do a public participation on the CDF. And we do not have a budget to do a public participation on very important stuff in this country. And on that issue of public participation, we really need to streamline the law on public participation.
Make it first.
Who knows how many people voted no? I mean, when you write on that paper that you are against the finance
There's no
bill
report.
or whatever project, who collates the results? Who tallies the results? Who tells us these are the number of Kenyans who decided that they do not want this project or undertaking from the government?
Mulamba, I want
one.
to take it away from you quickly and allow for Tinega to answer those questions. And if not now, then when? If Mulamba argues that NG-CDF perhaps is not as important a matter for us to discuss now, then when?
Okay, for first and foremost, let me bring it. We are seated here, guided by the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, that is giving us freedom of expression, right? The same Constitution that is governing our judiciary has already given this process that we're discussing here. We should not even be discussing about it. It is unconstitutional. It should not even be discussed.
Okay.
Are you getting my point?
Yes.
It should not even be discussed anywhere. We should now, the MPs, or whichever our Raila Odinga, should not even be thinking of our CDF or NG-CDF, because it is unconstitutional. Our focus should be on the finance bill. This is the current something that is going to bite us in the next 365 days ahead of us. And remember, the budget itself, I started, if you look at my tweets, my post in every social media, I started it way back January. Guys, this one is going to be tough on us.
But if we're going to halt every other activity of the nation
Yes.
and focus on one, really, what are we saying? Because
This is what-
it doesn't make sense.
It
for us
makes
to
sense.
imagine
It makes sense.
Does it?
What is a finance?
This is a whole nation that you're saying, forget about anything else and focus on this. And you know, Kevin is there.
Remember,
ready to-
remember the public participation that we do in this country has never held water. Just take this one to the bank. We started doing public participation on the last finance bill. They passed it at whatsoever, at whichever the cost. We lost number of young people protesting against that bill. But at the end of the day, they used dubious means. Are we in it or not? We are in it.
Kevin Osito, there will always be, you know, diversionary tactics.
Yes.
There will always be other things happening while others are happening. Can we genuinely say that a nation then halts every other activity for purposes of the finance bill? And that is not to say that I do not acknowledge the importance of the magnitude that it holds.
Linda, this is a very, very important question. And what the citizen must do is, in the same manner as the politician divides him or herself, is expectation of the citizen as well, that we don't stop moving because they are ahead of the game for us. Now, critically speaking, many things are going on. But the budget is born on 1st of July, which means that today the cabinet has approved the
finance bill.
the policy statement, the finance bill. Very soon, calls for public participation on that particular process will also go on. Now, why the parliamentarians are keen on the CDF one is so that they can be able to have it included in the next budget. Remember that they have actually, quote unquote, summoned the CS Treasury, Mheshimiwa Mbadi, a few days or weeks ago to go and answer to why CDF has not been sent to constituencies. And the good gentleman said, but the court has declared this thing unconstitutional. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Hence now the haste with the NADCO bills, because the CDF, the NG-CDF bill, same to the Senate Oversight Bill, same to NGAF, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, are bills that were proposed by NADCO as part of the 9 bills that they should be able to pass. So they're actually treating us to their own race. And as a citizen, we must run that race together with them. Now, in running that race is to organize and not to agonize, because I think we also agonize too much that they want to imagine that we do not know what is happening or that we are not interested. Now, what that means is that in our own sectors, in our own communities, those who think that they know, print those documents and sit with people, like in the Bunge la Wananchis, like in the Boda dens, like in town halls, as some of the things like what we do at County Governance Watch, where we go and we sit with people and we organize nice documents, we distribute and we discuss. Munaonaje story. So in the next week, parliamentarians are going to come here with this thing. This is what it means. So when you vote knowing that this is what you are voting for. So that, for example, if you look at the bill, what will go to public participation, which is the Otiende Amolo Constitution Amendment Bill, is seeking to entrench in Article 204 sections that of course, that section talks about equalization fund. Equalization fund is a fund that goes to county governments from national treasury as part of what is collected. What they want us to public participate on is, for example, if you look at that bill in subsection 2, the Constitution is amended by inserting the following new articles immediately rather after Article 204. So they have National Government Constituency Fund, they have Senate Oversight Fund, and then they have National Government Affirmative Action Fund. What are they saying? What they are saying here is not very different from what the Constitution is telling us in Article 187, which is what article we use to transfer functions from national to county government. But what Mheshimiwa Otiende Amolo has cleverly done is to take Article 187 and bring it within 204, by now breaking down what needs to be done. So what the citizens are going to be asked to do is that CDF stays as it is, but at the national government. So that this talk about devolving CDF and all that is not the question that the citizens are going to be given.
Okay.
What the citizens are going to be asked is, the framework of CDF as it is maintained at national government level, but allow the arm of government at that level, so that if it is national government, it is national government level. If it is county government, it is county government level. But because NG-CDF is national government, what Mheshimiwa Otiende has done is to indicate, for example, as I can read, in number 4 of that section, they are saying all that the national government constituency fund shall be a national government fund.
Okay.
Which means that there is no mechanism, there is no way this talk about devolving CDF is going to appear.
Okay.
This is the question.
And when it sits at the national government, automatically there are chances that it will be handled by the constituencies.
So when it sits at the national government,
members of parliament,
it will be done at the constituency. So who is the representative of the citizens
the member
at
of
the
parliament.
Constituency? It is the member of parliament.
Mr.
Then finally,
it sounds like you found a snake in your house, you chased it out of the front door, and then invited it back through the window.
But that is what is being done. The court says it is illegal, but then you are saying that we must have a foot with it. And we are all saying that part of the 3 things that Parliament is supposed to do is to make laws. The court does not make laws. The court only interprets laws. So it is for Parliament to make that law illegal or legal, then take it to court to interpret.
So
we have to close,
I understand, but here's the thing, guys. Wananchi, they're looking at us, they're listening to us, and you can imagine the sense of futility, the sense of frustration that is in the people of Kenya. So all these things are being said, cleverly couched languages, a lot of legalese and so on, and none of it is understandable for the Wananchi. For this one opportunity, whether rigged or not, this one opportunity for the Wananchi to have their voices heard through the public participation, what can Wananchi do? How can Wananchi assert their voice? What preparation does Wananchi need to have to be able to take advantage of this opportunity, whether it's rigged or not? Let's get some ideas. Let's give some people at home some hope. Let's start with you, Mulamba. Or Osito, since you have the microphone, just give us 1 or 2 points, quick, fast. What can Wananchi do now?
So the Wananchi needs to, very, again, technically speaking, to interact.
Ama imeenda.
No.
And I think he's explained it rather too well.
The Wananchi needs to interact with what will come.
All right,
public
fair
participation.
enough.
That's one. Number 2, the Constitution gives us the power in Article 1.1, all sovereign power. This thing that we call MPs, anybody can be an MP, is just a surrendered opportunity. Now, we must petition. We must write. Don't wait for the day of public participation. Once the gazettement is done, let's go ahead of the MPs.
Okay.
And then we flood the email of Parliament, of the clerk. We flood those pigeonholes of the members of Parliament. And I know that there are already organizations that are working with the Mwananchi to be able to forestall this. Of course, there is a space of petitioning for members of Parliament, which we hope that probably they will be able to do. But one of the biggest questions, again, I think Mulama was talking about this. We don't have a law on public participation. So the thresholds of public participation are already dented. Failure to pass the public participation law, again, goes back to Parliament, because it is the Parliament that is required to pass those laws and to legislate. So we are actually cocked and more or less cocooned.
My goodness. Mulamba, quick one, please.
One, as a Gen Z, I understand the language of protest. It is the last resort, but it is the first thing we should do.
And with the mic, Mulamba, your mic is...
Sorry. I will take that again. As a Gen Z, the language we understand is the language of protest. That is our first port of call, even though it is supposed to be the last resort. Secondly, I think we need to table petitions at some of these courts, probably the High Court, to stop this public participation, because we cannot let the MPs hold the public participation about something that is unconstitutional to validate it using the public participation. The second thing we should do is we should educate the public on why they don't need the CDF as much as they think. That those funds should come to us either through the county government or through the ministries in form of a free education. For example, Kibaki envisioned a free primary education. Have we transitioned past that? To this day, there are countries that fund tertiary education. we've not funded our secondary education, and we've not funded our tertiary education. Can we get past that? If we consolidate all the monies that come through the CDF, we can fund our secondary education and our tertiary education. The citizenry also needs to come out in their numbers to do this public participation, even though it's a cosmetic exercise. I hope we get a better law by, say, 2026 or so going forward, because we need to protect the constitutionalism. We need to remind the MPs that your work is legislation, oversight, and representation. We also need to protect devolution, because the current parliament is encroaching on devolution. And as I finish, we need to ensure that this CDF is not entrenched into law, because if it is entrenched into law, the MPs who are the lawmakers would find it easy to edit the roles of a member of parliament, and they would include development. I mean, that is so easy for them to do. We are holding them on the unconstitutionality of the CDF, saying that the MP's role is not to carry out development projects. What if they edit that particular clause, that particular article, that particular chapter? How will you hold them to account on using the same constitution?
All right. Jerry?
I agree with what my panelists have been saying, but because, again, some of these messes that we are in cannot be cured tomorrow by a public participation. So I choose to tell the people of this country that I really hope by now every Kenyan has understood why we need to take people who can articulate and legislate on behalf of Kenyans. Let us stop this notion that we even hear some members of parliament publicly ask Kenyans, "Ushainisikia bunge nikiongea?" Because that is where the problem lies. Because the moment somebody is very confident of the fact that they have never spoken in parliament, but they can say that, "You see me doing with CDF. Mimi siongeangi bunge, lakini kazi yangu inaongea mashinani," you know. We need to educate the Kenyan people that if at all parliament does not have lawmakers, representatives, and oversight people who can really hold into accountability the national government, people who can represent the will of Kenyans, not their self-interest. But as long as money is mentioned in CDF, that is in the same parliament, self-interest will never be out of that parliament. But if we can leave the roles of the members of parliament as the constitution of 2010 envisioned, for them to just do oversight, for them to just do legislation and representation, we can have a better country. Because as long as the member of parliament that you are telling to come explain to Wanjiko, he himself cannot even articulate the constitution, how is he going to come give me civic education about the questions that he's bringing to public participation? Let us, for a first time come 2027, let us look for members of parliament who can handle the three laws, the three roles of our members of parliament. Because if we leave it to just because somebody can lobby, just because somebody can, do development, which of course is an illegal thing, because an MP should not be doing development anyway. So let us maintain the sanity of the constitution. Legislation should be a key thing to any Kenyan who is going to the ballot. If you cannot vote for somebody who can make a law to make your life better, then I don't see the reason as to why that same person should be trusted to handle a fund that is supposed to make your life better. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, sorry. I think one of the big things we need to understand also is, as in I'm speaking to Kenyans, is what is the big picture here? I think today, as we're watching the news, we realize that there's some schools which have not even opened because they don't have food. I mean, to be very honest, if you've been a beneficiary of CDF, that thing is barely 20,000 shillings per year. But then it is around 2.5% of the national budget. Why can't this money be able to be funded? And it was in the news. There are some people who are saying that this money is working. This is how we've been able to develop. But we should ask ourselves, what is the bigger picture? Article 1 of the Constitution talks about the power, all sovereign powers belong to the people. And I love a guy who says, the people may. It's not mandatory. The people may elect representatives. That means, as my friend says, actually, even the previous times, we have been able to see constituencies gather themselves up and protest an MP. Just a constitution. Just a constituency. So we want to be able to sit down and ask ourselves, what is the bigger picture? Talk the local Mananchi. If you're watching me today, what is the bigger picture? Is the bigger picture the 10,000 or us being able to have all schools even have at least food? Then from there on, now we say, let's pay school fees. Let's do this.
All right. Mr. Tinega, who wants to? Yes.
Thank you. I think something that I'm going to touch on. Our feeding program is always on our budget. So if I see the some schools have not reopened because of feeding program, I really feel disappointed, because it is over 4-point-something billion that goes to feeding program in this republic. So where is this money taken to? This is the reason why we are saying that the MPs should have an oversight, or should be oversighted. If they want to go into development, then we need to have a team that will oversight them. Maybe the Senate. But the reason why the architecture of the Constitution did not give them, gave the governors, Senate to oversight them, is because they have the development aspect. But the MP, they have 3 functions. So when they get into development, or giving themselves mandate to do a development aspect on the ground, they are violating the Constitution. So we need to go by the letter of the Constitution and nothing else. What should be done by Mwananchi?
We have to close.
Number one, Mwananchi, I have to tell my fellow brothers and sisters around, if you don't want to go in pain, you have to speak out on whatever is being brought. But if your voice is not heard, demonstration is the key. Thank you.
30 seconds, Wakili.
Just the last one. Devolution and CDF has brought lots of development. Actually, it's a lifeline to very many constituencies, like my constituency, where Siasambaya meant my Shambaya. The development fund in itself, it's not wrong. The members of parliament ought to just understand the roles of the National Assembly, the executive. We need development implemented by the executive at the constituency level. We need the same implemented by the county government at the constituency and ward level. We must not fight development. We must fight the administration of these funds. The members of parliament need to understand that going forward in their making of the laws regarding the development in the constituency, that must be factored in. They can dissociate themselves in a bid to save the development in the constituencies.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have an MP, Babu Owino, saying, the committee does its work. All I do is to issue bursaries myself, hence no discrimination. But on the flip side, you remember that Babu Owino is one of those MPs who was actually awarded to have been the best performing MP on CDF.
Yes.
But there's also another viewer, friend of mine, who is saying, you know, this, Charlie is saying, in fact, some bursary forms, you are asked to give 500 to 1,000 shillings in exchange to qualify for a check of 5,000. Total corruption.
Okay. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Mulamba, we have to close. Unless you have feedback, we have to close. We have got to.
Quick one, please. 30 seconds.
CDF decentralizes expenditure, not revenue. This is untenable. We have a fund that is called CDF that decentralizes the spending of money, not the raising of money. That has already been reversed by counties. Counties are now collecting their own revenue, so we cannot have the CDF going forward. Its time is done by now.
Okay.
All right.
Wow, interesting.
And on that
Number
note, clearly this conversation is bigger than our time. I would like to ask all of you, first of all, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the feedback and the insight that you've shared tonight. Hopefully when we have this conversation again, because it's bigger than the time we have, hopefully you will heed our call and come in and share what you think and feel about this. But once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Tinega. Thank you, our member for Iruta. Thank you, Mr. Osido. Thank you, Mr. Mulamba. Thank you, Akili. And thank you, Njeri. And for the people at home, thank you for choosing us to inform you and at least have this space to have this conversation tonight.
You don't want to say your name is Victor Muyakane. I was waiting for you to say that. So
It
I can
is.
say my
That
name
is
is
my
Linda
humble name.
Alela.
It's not about me. It's about you, the
Indeed.
people. And we say thank you.
All right, we say asante sana, appreciating every other person who's here. Kevin Osido, Peter Simba, Tinega Damzen, as well as Jerika Higa. Kennedy's not here. And then James Mulamba and Neston Joseph. Asanteni sana. We see you again some other time. Do have yourself a lovely night. Thank you.